what can we do better as content creator to give better content for our children, and so that they feel that they feel included into this world, and they don't always see those fancy images of human beings who are not reflecting who they are.
I think it's just about telling a story that you know very well and that you can tell in an honest, real way. You know, just the fact that I'm a woman and coming in with a perspective, there are very few women writers, and now there are more than there were before. But just bringing in that perspective and that gaze is changing. So it's it's a little like pat to say like be yourself, but you have to be yourself in order to make something authentic. And I think that's the best example you can give to your kids. Just to let them know that they can express who they are without modeling someone else or copying somebody else.
Sure. And Varkha, I'm sure on this you'll have a lot to say.
Yes.
Because you're the specialist, you know more than anybody what mistakes sometimes we do as parents, or again from the media point of view, and how it can affect children and how we can do better, all of us.
Yeah. So I think a lot of learning takes place by modeling in terms of the children, how their own parents behave. So I was at a club before the lockdown, and I exited the gym, and there's a weighing scale right outside the gym, and I saw a 3-year-old dad, daddy, I want to weigh myself. Actually stopped the double take. But then I realized that this girl would have her mom obsess all the time, standing on the weight, figuring how many grams she could have possibly lost. So attitudes are learned. The attitude about your body type. So in India, we are obsessed with body type, which has to be completely unrealistic. We don't take into account genetic disposition to certain, frailty, certain hip size or whatever, because there's a genetic prototype that we inherit when we are born. Another aspect is the fairness of skin. So if you see, all these are learned behaviors.
Yeah.
And I believe that a large part of the learning comes not only with exposure to social media and to the films that depict certain things, but to actual behaviors. And so many, unfortunately, insecure mothers who actually showcase their insecurities because they're constantly on diets, constantly trying to lose weight, trying to, look this perfect size. And the child watches, and an anxiety begins to creep in. We have so many eating disorders coming to the fore more and more, especially since Instagram, Facebook, all these kind of apps which are capturing how you look. You have filters abounding. I've had people who are hairstylists, etc., who tell me that Varkha, they come into our parlors, they get ready and for what? Just take their own selfies, and after they've had their whole makeup done, by being like looking pretty and beautiful, they're still using filters to completely change what they want to put up. So it's a whole thing of social validation and acceptance for the way they look. So I think our entire, especially I'll talk mostly of India because most of my work is done here. Our entire outlook is to a very superficial aspects like your sensitivity, values, your honesty, your loyalty, your sincerity, your warmth, your love, your care. Those to who you are as a person is never celebrated. All focusing on is your external, what you showcase in terms of your figure for a woman and in a body type in terms of six packs for a man. So if your entire focus is only on an external acceptance, you are going to be fraught with anxiety as you grow older. As Kalki said, now if they're going to tell her that we want to do a Botox for her laugh line, these are normal progressions of growing up. But if your entire focus is only on an external, what are we teaching? What are we actually putting out there? That the only thing that matters is how you look. I mean, it's it's a scary proposition to be in. And I saw Rachel on film. It was excellent because I mean there were so many nuances that were captured. You know, a tired child, a child being goaded to say things which which the people whoever were photographing her, or, photographing her or filming her wanted her to say or wanted her to walk the ramp. Especially the scene in the limousine where she's pretending to be an adult drinking champagne. It made me sad because we are robbing our children of their childhood. We're taking away their innocence. We're taking away their naivety. And, the fact that today they need to start with us. So I've always said it's the parents that are ultimately going to what their children need. Because even if they go out into the world, if they come back home and they're given contrarian views of what they watched or what their peers do, I do believe we can shape outlook, we can shape attitude.
True. But very true. I just wanted to ask you, Rachel, is this something very recent, those contests and the beauty contests for children in Brazil, or is something that has been there before? In India, I don't think we have for such young children.
I don't think it's so recent, and I think it's not that common. The beauty contest for older people, yes, I mean they're everywhere. But the very, very small children, there was one here in Recife, the city that I live in the northeast of Brazil. But the one that we filmed is actually in the south, in a city called Porto Alegre, which is actually very famous for beauty contests. But they were little girls from all over Brazil that participated. But there weren't so many. I mean, there are 5 in the film, and that was it. But there's other things that are very similar. And one of the things that's quite interesting for me that isn't in the film, but that I came across whilst researching, was that a lot of the families that actually are involved in these beauty contests that want their little girls and little boys, there's some that have little boys as well, they're for economic reasons, because they want their kids to get modeling contracts or to start acting, and it's a means of them gaining them earning an income for the family when families are in a very precarious position. So I think that there is an economic element and a security element to all of this as well, which is a wider discussion, obviously. But
yeah. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of something similar in India. But I don't think
reality shows with kids.
And also shooting with young children in films. There's no limitations. I was working with a young girl, 3-year-old actually, in a film called Ribbon, and it was a very small budget film. We were shooting quite tight, and the one day off we had in I think 20 days, I bumped into her on the street with her mother, and her mother was taking her for an audition, and I was in shock. I was like, we're exhausted, and don't you want your daughter to have a rest on the one day we have a rest? It's like, no, this is really a big audition for a horror film. So yeah, it kind of broke my heart, and I realized that there's really no one checking on this kind of thing.
Yeah, there are no rules, no regulation of weekends or going to school, like going to school on weekdays and shooting only on weekends with a certain number of hours. On that apply, no?
Yeah, it really depends from production to production how it goes, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Here in Brazil, just as a comparison, in the film industry, it's actually quite strict in terms of how kids are, the number of hours they're allowed to work a day. You have to have an authorization from a judge for kids, from a judge that presides over a child's court in order for you to be able to have them in your production. They're quite strict here, which is interesting because there's that side as well, which is quite positive, But
I think it's mostly the parents who are imposing their own aspirations on children. A lot of times during the auditions, you feel that the parent is under more pressure than the child. It's just one line. Just say it. I taught you. Last night you were saying it so well. Why can't you say it now? Things like that, and you feel horrible for those kids who have come for the audition.
So very close to what the kids in Minimis go through.
Yeah.
I think Yeah, unfortunately, children are an extension of their parents. Parents see the child as an identity in his or her own right. So since he or she is an extension of me, his failure is my failure, and his success is my success. So the entire worldview about a parent-child relationship in India is quite different, I would say, from the Western world.
True.
So just to add something that was quite interesting for me when I was filming was, I mean, I completely agree that the kids' main influence is from the parents, and obviously it's the parents' responsibility it's the mothers and the fathers that are putting these little girls in this contest. But something that I observed, especially with the younger children, was that actually several of the mothers afterwards said that they would never put their daughter again in the contest. So they realized that it was an unhealthy environment for them at that age. And one of them said that they would wait until their daughter was much older so that she could decide if she wanted to be in the contest. And so what that made me think about, and I mean, I tried to touch on this a little bit in the film, but I think it's quite subtle, but was that actually it's not just about these parents' individual decisions. It's about how those parents within society influenced in terms of what their children should be doing. So there is this bigger societal context and social pressure that isn't supportive of parents and isn't teaching parents how to be better and how to model themselves so that they have more positive role models for their children. I think
that's what Varkha was, I guess, saying. It comes from the parents. We have to, the parents and the school. Just quickly before I come back to you, Varkha, I just want to tell the viewers that they can ask their questions, and at the end, in another 5 minutes, so we will take those questions. So please shoot, tell us. There is a chat below. You can just chat there and ask all the questions to the different guests today. And yes, Varkha, we didn't talk about the school at all, but the environment of the school also for children, again, in finding their own place. And there's bullying, there is all that, how teachers and how school as an establishment can help children feel better and not on the side. I mean,
So I've always believed it's history, geography, and the regular subjects that are taught, we must include another subject called emotional education. I think a lot of what Rachel said is the peer pressure. Can you imagine the parents feel the peer pressure to conform? What of children? Because they're all looking to be accepted and to be validated in the groups that they belong to. So they are all seeking a kind of a cohesive belongingness. Now, if today we haven't built emotional stamina of teaching our children that yes, of course, it's very important to belong, but you don't need to always conform. I think we have to empower the child through our school curriculums, through the actual content that is taught, that it is okay to be different. Now, we've always looked at different as being a black sheep. We love to follow the herd. We love communities. We are like tribes going together. Now, if you are going to teach that as a way of life, getting along, you're going to find it extremely hard that when it comes to body type, you're going to suddenly ask the child to like step aside. It's a holistic ideology where we have to teach our children that, you have to have an individuality. Yes, group belongingness is one facet of, mental health, but individuality and identity of your own, which may not necessarily be fitting in to what society expects of you, I think is a very empowering lesson that needs to be taught. And in my institute in New York, we had a school called the Living School. We had sessions on emotional education, and we did some kind of study to see that people who graduated from our school did much emotionally as compared to students who came out of other schools where they didn't have this emotional training to be able to cope. At the end of the day, it's all about coping with your ability to not always be accepted as one of them. So I think schools, curriculums, what the teachers impart play a very significant part in education. And I think emotional education is the need of the hour.
Your mic is off.
Sorry, I'm saying even cinema beyond, I mean, which can be included in education. That's what we've been trying to do all these years, and that's what we believe in, that through cinema, through visual art, you can open all those windows for children. And I just wanted to check with all of you parents. Varkha, I think you also, I forgot to ask you that day. But what are your children watching? Or Kalki, I mean, Safo is still very small, but how do you think you will start this relationship of cinema? Because you're cinephile, so obviously at some point you will watch film with Safo. So how are you all handling cinema in your life with your children? Yeah, Varkha, please go.
Oh, I don't want to start this. Somebody else start.
My daughter is too grown up. She's 20. So I have control of what she watches.
Yeah.
But yes, she's watching everything. And I think this kind of Generation Z, I think they're called, I think they're far more grounded in terms of that they are breaking barriers. The movie, the show on Netflix, The Social Dilemma, aspects like this, they are, I think, now beginning to realize that they are being consumed or trapped in kind of social definitions of what is beauty. And like Fair and Lovely changed it to Glow and Lovely, Black Lives Matters. I think slowly there's a small well, I won't call it a revolution, but there's a little bit of a change coming. And I just hope that people like Rachel continue to. I saw the film on bullying in the, I think I forget the name, okay, which you send me the link to, and very interesting. And I think the more we can communicate, because a visual medium like cinema can make a world of a difference. It can inspire, it can just change your entire outlook. All you need is one good film to touch a chord somewhere, and hopefully it can change an attitude. So I think slowly but surely, slight change are coming.
I have been through. It started from baby TV, then Masha and the Bear, then Peppa Pig, and then now it's Barbie and Spirit and unicorns. And this is the graph I'm telling you since she's been watching TV.
Mine was very close with Inan, so with Spirit. I don't know what it is about Spirit.
Yeah, she started watching TV at the age of 3.5 to 4, and now this is where we are. We are at the Spirit and horses and all these teenage girls having crush issues, and she keeps coming to me and asking me what's a crush. So things like that. She's just 7, but we try to control it, but it's really difficult. A lot of times you need your space, and the only thing that will get the child busy is television. It's one is very guilty of that, but there is no other option. And because of the lockdown and this and that is happening. And yeah, so a couple of things she picked up, like first time she stopped having family dinners because she's more interested in TV than family dinner. Mm-hmm. And I tell her that, like when she was 4.5 or something, for the first time she told me, I hate this family. And I was like, where did you learn that? I kept asking, how does she even know what a family is? Then after 6 months, when I saw Coco, I realized that, she picked it up from Coco, where the little child says, I hate this family. And because he is asked to listen to the parents. And when that scene came, when I saw the film, when that scene came and it just passed, I didn't even realize there was a moment there. But when you realize children are watching it from a completely different lens than yours, you are trying to see the story move and this, that, that. But children are only watching their own things, So yeah, but that's the journey. And I don't know how to take them out. I take her away from cartoon animation films, which are so fast and they make your brain start working really fast. I try to show her Buster Keaton, Max Linder, and all of that, but she finds it too boring. I was like, okay, maybe later on you'll realize that this is better.
We'll have a private chat, Sharat.
Okay. Cool.
Don't worry. What about you? Is it very different, Rachel, in Brazil, or is it Peppa Pig?
No,
I think it's quite interesting. No, Peppa Pig is a universal domination. I think everywhere. I think a lot of these these series are they're everywhere, and I agree completely with Sharat. I think it's really difficult to avoid it, and I think because also there's an element once they're at nursery school and other kids are watching things and it becomes like this point of socialization as well, and I think even the films that we as adults, again, it's like our ideas like that we think are more appropriate or more independent films and things, like some that I've actually seen, I thought, okay, this will be great because it's different to this kind of Peppa Pig mainstream stuff. And sometimes there's elements in these films that are really, really difficult for them to process or just as difficult. And I remember with my son, who's now 9, like he was terrified of Finding Nemo because the idea of losing a parent, and he was completely traumatized by that. And Finding Nemo is like, it's a wonderful film, it's a great kids film, but it's like I think how I've tried to deal with it is think, okay, actually, like they can watch all of these films, but we have to be present and to discuss and talk through the themes and the issues that emerge in all of these films. And because they're films and because they depend on these big narratives and things, like a lot of the time there are things around death, losing people, friendships, losing friends, gaining friends that are really, really difficult for children when they're very small. They're not emotionally mature enough to really deal with that. So I think and I think that goes through the whole range of films, from the most commercial to the most like artistic and alternative. And I think that is really, I think that's what I've learned over the years, like that is important. And just one other thing I was thinking about, I think is quite interesting now, like with all of the streaming, I think the access that we have to different kinds of films is actually quite positive. Like my kids during the COVID like isolation stuff, they've watched all of the Studio Ghibli Japanese animations, which are wonderful. That's a wonderful cinematographic education for them. And they were available because Netflix licensed them, so they're all available on Netflix. I think there was a thing about what's available to us to watch. But again, even like with those films, they have heavy themes, and we have to be present to discuss those issues with them, I think.
Yeah, like I remember when my daughter saw Chaplin's Kid, she cried and cried and cried, and she had to be explained that no, it'll be fine. It's a film. It's just a film. But they believe in it. They believe it, So
yeah, sure.
She had a traumatic experience. She hates that film as of now. Maybe later she won't.
So Kalki, you got all your tips. You're ready.
Yeah, thank you, guys. This will help me a lot in the future.
Call you back in 10 years and check.
Yeah. Well, actually, I have a 12-year-old brother, so I do have this a little bit of the experience of that. And during the lockdown, it was quite something to like limit his internet time. He got 4 hours a day, which he thought was just totally unjust and terrible. So yeah, I can totally see this coming. It's going to be a big fight. But I also think when I grew up, like, it was the time of VHS, but we loved watching a movie. It was so special and so exciting. And I would learn like all the dialogues. I would know each character really well. So it's an amazing thing that we have. It's just, I think it is that thing of making sure you're with them. Like it's a family experience. I don't know. I feel it should be a special thing to get to watch stuff rather than just like, YouTube videos.
I think there has to be a balance because I have 11 years old and it's difficult now for me to tell him what to watch. But I can still, once in a while, I get to him and I tell him, okay, now we watch something together so that, yes, we can discuss. And so I think it's very important to keep also movies for the family. There's movies for just the kids, for them to enjoy and have their time with their friends or discuss with their friends, and then use cinema to bring different issues and have a conversation. And that leads me to the questions from that we are receiving. So there is Bharti Gallo. I hope I pronounced your name Galot. Sorry. I pronounced the name well. Who's saying, special able children are bullied a lot. What can be done? So again, I know that at IKFF we have a couple of films on disability. Again, it's an interesting way to discuss with children. So maybe Varkha, you want to say anything about this?
I think sensitization. I mean, again, as a culture, we are not really sensitized to people. So, education to schools, to children, to other parents, to try and be as inclusive as possible. I know it's easy and done, but it's an attempt that every parent have to make when they maybe go and admit the child to either a regular school or a special school, to take the effort to try and include other children, to come home to interact with the child with whatever disadvantages that their child may unfortunately have. So I think communicating, conversing, talking about how everybody's different. There are things which are sometimes completely beyond our control, and there is no reason why somebody has certain disadvantages. So I think conversations around differences, I think that's a very important part. I think a lot of us parents, when we have challenges that our children may face, feel very ashamed as if we've failed because our children have some conditions. And I think we ourselves are okay and accepting, more than okay, I think accepting of our own children's disadvantages, we find it much easier to talk about it and to kind of get people to accept them. So I think conversations around the differences is one of the better methods to try and get children to hopefully not be bullied. But I mean, it's very sad. I don't think India understands sensitivities at all. Disadvantages, differences are not really spoken about, and it's always pushed under the carpet. So I guess the only thing is more and more conversations, more and more communications, not hiding the child, trying to be as inclusive as possible. I think that's it.
But Bhakti is just saying that apparently her child is not being accepted. So I hope that you find the strength. And Kalki, you have done a beautiful film, Margarita with a Straw. How was it to work on this film? Can you tell us a little bit? Then the reception of the film, have people said things to you? I don't know. Like, can you talk to us a little bit? Because that was a very unusual film for India again.
Yeah, I think, we've had some really incredible responses, both from the perspective of someone with disability and LGBT issues. So like one girl, she took her mother to watch the film and then told her mother that she was gay. In terms of just the question of sexuality and disability, a lot of parents were like, I don't even consider my child's sexuality. It's just so hush in India about, anyway, sexuality is hush. And so it really opened up a lot of conversations between young parents with disabled children, or even, people with.
Kalki, I can't hear you. Anyone else can hear Kalki, or is it just me?
No, she's gone off. I think her
Yeah, something is okay. There is another question. The first one, yeah. From Bushra Naveed. Hi, Bushra. When I was in school, teachers and principals were always body shaming us. Even something as small as a little bigger girl takes more space on a bench, and we can fit 3 skinnier girls in one bench. Well, that's a nice teacher. Anyone wants to comment on this?
Again, I think the perspective for a woman being that she has to be skinny to be accepted. And imagine if a teacher, and I've always believed that it's people at the top. Problem parents have problem children. It's rarely the child. Teachers are emotionally ill-equipped. They don't have the sensitization to know what these small few words, as Sharat said that a scene in Coco affected his daughter so much that she believed that all families are bad families, right? Now, as teachers, as people in positions of power, we don't realize that every word makes a difference to the child's psyche. They look up to us. They look up to us as people who they, sometimes feel awestruck by, people who they want to get inspired by. And if I, in my position, am actually projecting my own insecurities. Maybe the teacher was a fat teacher. I don't know. When she was growing up, maybe she was subjected to something similar. But my question is, if you've been subjected to something similar, wouldn't you want to do something quite the opposite? Wouldn't you want to inform and educate quite the contrary to what you may have suffered as a child? But well, that calls for that, and that's what. And I believe the teachers need emotional education first. They have no right to teach if they come with their own biases and prejudices about certain aspects of body type. I mean, I really feel, kind of surprised that this kind of a teacher is even given a position of a teacher in a school like this. But at the end of the day, teachers are just humans like any of us. So, Bushra, I would just say that it's sad that you've been subjected to something like this, but I do not accept anything and everything that your teacher tells you. Think for yourself, and I think make a life of your own. I think that would be the best way to be able to cope with this kind of unfortunate comments that have been made to you.
Yeah, this is, I don't know, maybe we also do it unwillingly. We don't even realize sometimes, but truly, I mean, that's something I've also always tried to be extremely careful not to talk about a person, referencing that person by the weight, the color, trying to find a different way to understand who I'm talking about. But yeah, I don't know, the nicknames we give to children, all these things affect them, and we don't also realize. We have another question from Ruchi. Hi, everyone. Just wanted to know everybody's thoughts on constructions of one's identity, especially visual identity, through social media and the need for validation from one's peers. And I think we lost Kalki in between. Hopefully she'll come back. Anybody, Sharat, you want to say something? Your daughter is getting into, you're on silent, Sharat.
It's a trap. One realizes that, and she has a Facebook account which was started as a fun thing when she was just born, and her mother was operating she's still operating that. But that was purely meant for the family to look at the photos and update the family about the. But it has come to that where when she asked me how many likes, and I was like, okay, how does it matter? So then she realized that and that okay, it is only for the family. So, yeah. But yeah. It's a trap. It's a trap once you get into it, and we can't blame children for that. Adults are in that game of likes and dislikes and all of that, numbers and retweets, all of that.
But we also see a little bit of, I mean, I see now positivity that you get all kind of people now who can show themselves and have their account, and you have positivity on women with weight or different colors. I mean, so now also the people you don't see in regular media have their own channels and become stars of YouTube or Instagram. So that is also, how is it in Brazil? I mean, Brazil is quite known for many years before even social media, like the body is something. So how is it now in Brazil?
But I mean, Brazil is actually quite famous for Brazilians being the most active users of social media in the world. One of the countries that has the most users on Facebook and Instagram. So, I mean, I think, actually my experience with my children is quite interesting because they because both me and their father's a film director as well, and we both are active on social media, and we post things, and it's very like to do with I post more things perhaps with my personal life. Their father's more very focused on his professional side, but we use social media a lot for our professional life as well. So they're very aware of that, and they actually they question it. It's really interesting. And I think that the discussions around social media and posting on Instagram, my daughter's she's just turned 6. She will say, I don't want you to post that on Instagram. They're very much aware. And I think these are discussions that are starting to come up in schools and come up amongst parents. So I think they are a generation that's much more aware of how social media, the risks of social media, and how they need to be in control of it. And I think that's what it's about, being in control and about understanding it. And it's about visual literacy as well. And I think like one of the things that like Varkha was saying about emotional education in schools, which would be wonderful. I'd love there to be like emotional education in my kids' schools and all schools. But I also think this idea of like visual literacy, about children understanding how to use images and what images mean and interpret them, and how, because they see images more than they see words. They read images more than they see words in terms of their daily life. So, and I think that's something that some schools are taking on board but I think it needs to be much more, so that the children are equipped with knowing how to use these, because they're tools. I mean, Instagram, all of these social networks, they're tools. And it's like, I remember reading that when the printed press started 150 years ago, people were scared of the printed press because they didn't know that how it would affect people, and how like people would be. So I think it's just these tools that we have that exist, that we need to know how to use them in positive ways and learn that. And I think this younger generation are going to be much better at it than we have been so far.
Yeah, they're learning way faster than us. That's for sure. But I agree totally that in school there should be some more education on visual art. We need to give them the right tools and how to use this social media, how to what's fake news, what has been edited. All that is very important in today's world. They need all of this. And again, this is something that we really believe in and are trying to do very hard here at IKFF and at XNIDs. Yes, Varkha.
And about identity, we've always said that it's identity which is the problem. So if I identify myself as a voluptuous, sexy person, and I'm going to constantly hold of me, anything that varies from that kind of visual of my own is going to cause me distress. So as a therapist, I always say, do not develop a granite-like identity. Develop a fluid identity, because life flows. You will go through many iterations as you grow up. You will develop secondary sexual characteristics, then you'll become a woman, a middle-aged person, then you'll grow old, so that there is no fixation to an identity. So I think identity is a problem, because all identity objectifies but if I have no identity, I keep flowing through life as life takes me by. It's a much easier way.
True, very true. Thank you, Varkha. I think Kalki's network is gone down, so that's how it disappeared. Thank you very much, everybody. It was lovely to hear all different point of view from even as far as Brazil. Thank you so much, Rachel. Like we had told you with Neha, the artistic director of the festival, it was like we fell in love with your film when we saw it first 2 years ago. We didn't have a place for it that time, but this year, because we have family films at IKFF, we ran for it and decided we could not miss it again. And thank you for your support. It's absolutely lovely that you accepted to wake up very early this morning to be with us.
No, thank you very much for having me.
No, thank you. I hope we continue to be in touch and have your films at IKFF. Please keep feeding us with your work. Sharat, thank you.
Thank you.
To some more conversation about children and cinema. Very soon. Thank you so much. What are you working on currently?
Writing.
Writing. Nothing else. What else? Great. You're one of the best writers we have. So looking forward to many movies after the lockdown.
Thank you. Yeah.
Varkha, it was a pleasure to have you. I'm very glad I got to know you more today.
Thank you.
And I hope that, we will continue to work together also, because you know all these issues better than all of us. So you can be a great guide for us in curating films.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel. You made a wonderful film. And I will, if with your permission, of course, share it with some people I think who need to watch. So thank you so much. And thank you, Sharat. It's been a
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you. My pleasure. I'll just few seconds before we say a final goodbye. So we have other films on body image and body positivity. One of these films is a French film called Stars by the Pounds. It's a beautiful feature film from France. The filmmaker was very keen to be with us today, but she doesn't speak English. So it would have been very difficult to lead the panel with her. So we decided that anybody who's watching the film can then send us questions, either on social media or by email. The questions will be sent to her. It can be a video recorded message. It can be a written message. All of it will be sent to her, and we will compile all of them for her to answer those questions before the end of the festival. So thank you once again, and I think we are leaving with the trailer of Stars by the Pounds by Marie-Sophie Chamon. Thank you, good evening, good day, Rachel. Bye.
Elle va présenter le concours junior du CNES cette année.
C'est super.
Puis... Loïs, c'est ma meilleure élève, passionnée. Elle va présenter le concours junior du CNES cette année.
C'est super.
Puis surtout, tu vois, c'est l'occasion de se rendre compte qu'on n'a pas besoin d'aller soi-même dans l'espace pour découvrir l'univers. Hein.
Oh. De toute façon, tout ça, c'est de ta faute. Pourquoi t'as fait des enfants avec une obèse?
C'est fait pour prendre cher, les parents, un peu. Sinon, ça sert à quoi?
Je veux partir dans l'espace. Je veux le concours.
Je vais leur montrer à tous ces connards que je vais être grosse et cosmonaute. Sérieux, les gens, ils ont même plus pitié des handicapés, quoi.
Facile à dire pour toi. Regarde-toi, t'as une taille de mannequin. Alors, on échange quand vous voulez, y a pas de souci. Moi, je prends ton gros cul, je prends ton petit cul, mais n'importe lequel, quoi. De 55 €, s'il vous plaît. Elle est meuf, mais à Puce-Hollande.
Vous êtes le seul groupe de filles en fait.
On a remarqué, ouais. Il monte à combien ton truc? 1500 mètres. On va tous les niquer.
Non, c'est nul, arrête!
Elle est très bien comme elle est, notre sonde.
C'est à cause de moi que t'es comme ça.
Tu crois pas que ta fille, si tu t'aimais un peu plus, elle aurait pas envie de partir dans l'espace? Écoute, moi j'aime tes gros seins, j'aime ton gros ventre et j'aime ton gros cul, Jocelyne!